The other day, I was watching a friend of mine, a freelance designer who loves to brag about the freedom of working from home. We were sitting in a cafe, but he wasn't really there. Every few minutes, his eyes would dart reflexively to the bottom right corner of his laptop screen, checking the digital clock. He looked genuinely anxious, almost hunted. When I asked him what the rush was, he couldn't point to a specific deadline or a meeting. He just sighed and said, "I feel like I'm falling behind." It was fascinating to watch. The sun was still high, the coffee was warm, and no one was standing over his shoulder. Yet he was treating those little shifting digits like a demanding supervisor, apologizing to the air for taking a 20-minute break. To him, time wasn't a flow of experience or a natural rhythm of the afternoon. It had become a dwindling resource he was failing to spend correctly. He viewed the clock as a neutral, objective friend, a simple tool to keep his life organized. But there's a subtle, almost invisible violence in that ticking. We've been taught to see the clock as a great achievement of civilization, a way to synchronize our world. We think of it as a mirror reflecting the real time. But if you look closer at how it actually entered our lives, a different picture emerges. Before the clock was a sleek accessory on your wrist or a silent vibration in your pocket, it was an infrastructure of power. It didn't come into the world to help us stay on track. It was designed to produce a version of time that could be measured, sold, and most importantly, demanded from us. That instantaneous shift from the clock being a helper to being a warden is where the real story begins. We stopped living in time and started working for it. Once you realize that the clock doesn't just measure your day, but actually dictates who owns your heartbeat and your focus, you have to wonder, is the clock a tool we use, or is it the technology that governs us?
And that question, that final question right there, is it a tool or is it a governor? That's, I think, the perfect place for us to start this deep dive.
It really is, because it gets to the heart of something we take completely for granted. Like your friend at the cafe, we don't question the clock.
No, you don't. You treat it like it's the weather or gravity. It's just a fact of the universe. But it's not a fact of the universe at all.
Right. It's a technology.
It's a political technology. And I know that sounds heavy.
It does. Political feels like a really strong word for the thing that tells me it's time for lunch. Politics is, voting, policy, taxes, not the ticking of a clock.
But it is political because it structures power. It dictates hierarchy. It creates a system of who owes what to whom. I mean, think about it this way.
Okay.
Before the clock really became weaponized, let's say, by the Industrial Revolution, we lived in what historians call organic time.
Organic time.
Yeah. So if you were, say, a farmer in the 14th century, you didn't have a Zoom call at 9:100 a.m.
Yeah.
That concept would be meaningless.
Right. Your schedule was the sun, the seasons.
Exactly. You worked when the sun was up and the weather was good. You stopped when your body was tired or when it got dark. Your boss was nature. But the mechanical clock, it changed everything. It killed organic time.
And it replaced it with what? Mechanical time.
Mechanical time. And what's different about it is that it's abstract. It's homogenous. It's divisible into equal units. An hour at dawn is the same length as an hour at dusk, which is not how it feels, but it's how the clock measures it.
It turns time into a commodity, something you can put in box and sell.
Precisely. Time becomes a container, and that container must be filled with labor. You see the shift. You no longer owe the Lord a portion of your crop. You started owing the factory owner a portion of your life, measured in hours and minutes.
And that's where the anxiety comes from, the feeling my friend had, I'm falling behind. I'm behind what? Behind the clock.
You're falling behind the schedule. You are wasting this new precious resource. That feeling he has, that little panic when he sees the digital clock, that's the ghost of the factory whistle, just, haunting his MacBook at a cafe.
So the clock is a supervisor that never goes home. It's this silent, invisible source of pressure.
It's the most effective operator of discipline ever invented. It doesn't need to yell. It doesn't need to threaten. It just ticks.
Wow.
And this is where our deep dive today gets, well, I think it gets really fascinating because we're looking at a moment in history where two massive competing philosophies about this clock discipline are playing out in real time.
A global experiment.
A huge one. A fundamental divergence in how civilizations are choosing to live with this technology.
So laid out for us, what are the two sides of this experiment?
Okay, so on one side, you have the contemporary West, Europe, North America.
Right.
Here, we're in a phase of negotiation. We're trying to push back against the clock.
With things like flexible working hours, remote work.
The 4-day work week, mental health days. We've decided that the rigid, mechanical time of the 20th century is, frankly, crushing us. We're trying to reclaim some of that organic flow. We want work-life balance.
We want to make the clock our tool again, not our boss.
That's the goal. But then you look to the other side, and for this deep dive, we're focusing on the model you see in East Asia, particularly as exemplified by China. And it is the complete opposite.
They're not negotiating.
They're doubling down. It's a model where absolute total synchronization to the clock isn't seen as oppression. It's seen as the very engine of state capacity, of national survival. They aren't trying to escape the clock's logic.
They're trying to perfect it, to merge with it.
Exactly. And that brings us right to the first major piece of our research today, the physical manifestation of this idea. The hardware.
Because it's one thing to talk about this philosophically, but it becomes very real when you look at something like China's high-speed rail network.
It's almost certainly the largest, most complex, and most tightly synchronized machine that humanity has ever built. It's a physical monument to clock discipline.
I found the story that really paints a picture of this. It's not about a high-level engineer or a government official. It's about a welder, a man they call Old Chen. He's a specialized welder, and he's working on the final segment of a high-speed rail bridge out in the Gansu corridor. It's remote, it's rugged.
Right.
And when you or I picture a big construction project, we picture a kind of organized chaos, right? There's dust, there's yelling, there's always someone waiting for a delivery.
Delays are just part of the process.
Not for Old Chen. The way his workday is described, it's not construction, it's closer to choreography. Or surgery.
Every second is accounted for.
Completely. He views his watch not as a personal item, but as a synchronization node. He's plugging himself into this massive living organism. He has a 20-minute welding window.
Just 20 minutes.
And that's not a suggestion. It's not a guideline. It's a calculated mathematical certainty. That window is designed to fit perfectly between the moment a supply truck delivers his materials and the exact moment a track laying machine is scheduled to arrive.
So if he's late?
If he's late by even a few minutes, the track layer has to wait. And if the track layer waits, the next delivery truck gets held up. The entire supply chain for hundreds of miles starts to stutter.
The whole organism feels it.
Exactly. And the story talks about his stoic pride. He doesn't resent the clock. He doesn't see it as his warden. For him, the ticking of his watch is the rhythm of the state's power. He feels like he's participating in what they call a temporal miracle.
Temporal miracle, that's a powerful phrase. But when you look at the raw numbers, you can kind of see why they'd use it. Miracle is almost an understatement.
Let's get into those numbers. The scale here is... it's just hard to comprehend.
Okay, so around 2008, China effectively had 0 kilometers of high-speed rail. Today, it has over 40,000 kilometers.
40,000.
And they're aiming for 50,000 by 2025. That's more than 2/3 of the entire world's high-speed rail network combined in about 15 years.
The comparison that always gets me, the one that really drives it home, is the California high-speed rail project.
Oh, that's a painful one.
It really is. It was approved by voters in 2008, the same year China was starting from scratch. As of today, how many operational miles does the California project have?
0.
0. And in that exact same time period, China built, you said 40,000, but I saw one estimate closer to 45,000 kilometers. How is that physically possible? What is the core difference?
It's not just about, having more workers or pouring concrete faster. It's a fundamentally different way of thinking about space and time. It goes back to these national plans they drew up, the 4+4, and later the 8+8 grid concepts.
What does that mean?
It means they took a map of China, which is a huge, geographically diverse country with massive mountains, deserts, rivers, and they basically ignored the geography. They drew a perfect grid over it like a circuit board.
So they decided what the most efficient network would look like in theory and then just made reality conform to it.
That's a great way to put it. The goal wasn't to build a track from city A to city B. Mm-hmm. The goal was to conquer time by shrinking space, to make the entire country operate as a single economic unit.
But the mechanics of that, the day-to-day operation, must be insane. I saw a term in the research that stood out, mixed integer programming.
Ah, yes.
It sounds terrifyingly complex. What is that? What's actually happening in the control rooms that lets this organism function?
So this is where it moves from just impressive construction to something almost sci-fi. Mixed integer programming is a type of high-level algorithmic optimization. But think of it this way.
Please.
Imagine you're playing the most complex high-stakes game of Tetris in the world.
Okay, Tetris, I get that.
The game board is the entire national rail schedule. Your main pieces, the ones you can't mess up, are the passenger trains running at 350 kilometers an hour. Their schedules are locked in.
Yeah.
They are sacred. But between those passenger trains, there are these tiny, fleeting gaps in the schedule. Sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's just 90 seconds. On a normal railway, that's just dead time.
But not here.
Not here.
Yeah.
Here, that's an asset. So the algorithm's job is to look at the vast sea of freight cargo, mostly e-commerce packages they call express boxes, and figure out how to perfectly slot those boxes into those tiny gaps.
Wait, they're running cargo on the same lines as the bullet trains at the same time?
In the gaps between them. And this is the key. The algorithm isn't just seeing if a freight container can fit. It's running millions of calculations to find the absolute most profitable and efficient way for it to fit without ever delaying a passenger train.
So it's weaving freight and passenger traffic together in real time.
In real time. It calculates what they call soft windows and hard windows. A soft window is the ideal arrival time to maximize revenue. A hard window is the absolute physical limit before it causes a delay.
And if a shipment misses its hard window?
It's not just late in the way we think of it. It's a mathematical failure. It cascades through the system. It degrades the capacity of the track. It risks passenger delays. It destroys the revenue model for that entire corridor for that day.
So when old Chen is on that bridge, his 20-minute window isn't just about his job. He's literally creating the physical reality that allows this algorithm to function.
Yes. His adherence to the clock is a prerequisite for the entire digital system to work. If he takes a smoke break that runs 5 minutes over, he's not just making his foreman angry, he is introducing a glitch into a national scale algorithm.
A human glitch in the machine.
Exactly. And the system is designed to eliminate those glitches. That's why they talk about the separated carriage strategy. A rigid, inflexible separation of passenger and freight flows. It's a philosophy. Everything has its place and everything has its time. There is no room for improvisation.
There's no go with the flow.
The flow is pre-calculated by the machine.
But to achieve this, to lay 40,000 kilometers of track on a perfect grid, that must require an immense amount of, force. You have to move people. You have to ignore environmental concerns.
You do. And that's the trade-off, isn't it? In the West, we have layers of what you might call friction, property rights, public comment periods, environmental impact studies. Each one of those things slows down the clock.
For good reasons, we'd argue.
For very good reasons. But in this model, those frictions are seen as impediments to national progress. They are liabilities to be engineered out of the system. And when you do that, you get speed and you get lower costs.
Right. The cost difference is staggering, too.
It's about $17 to $21 million per kilometer in China. In Europe or the US, you're looking at double, triple, sometimes quadruple that amount.
And a lot of that comes down to standardization, right? I read about these standardized track slabs.
The CRTS-3 track slab. Think of it like a giant pre-made Lego brick for a railway. In a traditional project, you build the foundation on site, pour the concrete, wait for it to cure. That takes time. It's dependent on weather. It's variable. It's organic.
It's a potential glitch.
It's a huge potential glitch. So instead, they mass produce these massive, perfectly identical slabs in a factory under controlled conditions. Then they just truck them out to the site and drop them into place. Snap, click, move to the next one. It turns construction into a manufacturing assembly line.
It's all about removing variables to stick to the algorithm's schedule.
Every single part of the process is designed to serve the timetable, which means, going back to old Chen, he's not just a man with a welding torch. He is a component, a human component in a vast electromechanical machine.
And for him and for the system he's part of, the proof is in the pudding. He can stand on that bridge and point to the finished track and say, look, my village is now a 4-hour ride from a metropolis. You can't argue with the steel.
The result validates the method.
It's undeniably impressive. I mean, you can't not be impressed by the sheer scale and speed of it, but it also feels deeply impersonal, cold. The human seems secondary to the schedule. And that feeling, that sense of the human being turned into a component, it gets even more intense when we shift from the physical hardware of the trains to the digital software of the modern economy.
When we enter the world of 996.
Yeah, the 996 culture. We have to talk about another composite story we looked at, a young software developer in Hangzhou. Let's call her Xiaoli. Now, in the West, if I tell you a company's culture is 996, what's your immediate reaction?
That it's exploitative, probably illegal. It's a sign of toxic workplace, burnout culture.
Exactly. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. It's a 72-hour work week. It sounds like a nightmare. But when you read about the perspective of someone like Xiaoli, It's framed so differently, it's almost dizzying.
He doesn't see herself as a victim.
Not at all. She's sitting in her glowing office tower at 10 o'clock at night, her entire day segmented into these 10-minute coding sprints, and she sees herself as a soldier on a digital front line.
A soldier for what?
For national survival. She genuinely believes that her country is in an existential race for technological sovereignty, especially in AI and semiconductors, and she believes that if her generation eases up, if they stop running at this pace, the country will lose its edge and fall behind.
So the clock isn't a corporate tool of oppression. It's a weapon in a geopolitical struggle.
It's a whip, she admits, but it's a whip she believes is necessary for the collective good. This is the narrative of collective survival, and it's incredibly powerful.
It's something we often miss in the West.
Right.
We analyze it through our lens of individual rights and corporate greed. Don't get me wrong, the corporate greed is absolutely there. But for the worker on the ground, it's often framed as a patriotic duty.
But I mean, let's be real about the numbers. 72 hours a week. I did the math on this. Let's say you get a full 8 hours of sleep a night.
Which is generous.
Very generous. That leaves 16 hours in a day. You work for 12 of them. You're left with 4 hours. That 4-hour window has to include your commute, eating all your meals, showering, any chores, and, maybe speaking to another human being you're related to.
It's not a life, it's a function. You're a node in a network, just like old Chen.
You're just processing code instead of welding steel. And yet, the data on this is confusing. I saw a study, I think from Tsinghua University, that said job satisfaction among these 996 workers was only marginally lower than their peers working a standard 40-hour week.
Only about 8% lower, I believe.
That makes no sense to me. How can you be even remotely satisfied when you have literally no personal autonomy, no free time?
I think there are two huge structural reasons for that. The first is something called the Mayer economy.
Mayer economy.
Yeah, this is a really crucial concept to understand how China's tech boom happened so fast. In China, a city's mayor isn't just a local administrator cutting ribbons. He acts more like a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. He has a limited term, maybe 5 years. And his single most important metric for getting promoted up the Communist Party ladder is GDP growth. He needs to show spectacular economic results fast.
So he's in a sprint too.
He's in a desperate sprint.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He uses state resources, state land, state loans to back tech companies. He'll pour money into a local startup or give huge tax breaks to a giant like Alibaba or ByteDance. And his implicit message is, you need to grow now. You need to sprint.
So the pressure isn't just coming from the CEO, it's coming from the state itself all the way down.
It's a cascade. The state official sprints, so the CEO has to sprint, so the middle manager has to sprint, which means Xiaoli has to sprint. It's a decentralized, nationwide race where every single level is terrified of being the one that slows down.
Okay, so that's the top-down pressure. What's the other reason? The bottom-up motivation.
That's what I'd call the lottery ticket theory. This is the cold, hard calculation a young graduate like Xiaoli makes.
The personal calculation.
Exactly. Imagine you're 22. You've just graduated from a top university. You have two options. Option A. You go work for a state-owned enterprise. It's stable, it's safe, you'll work 40 hours a week.
Sounds pretty good.
But you will earn a modest salary, maybe the equivalent of $1,000 a month. And you will never, ever be able to afford to buy an apartment in a city like Beijing or Shanghai. The housing prices are astronomical. You are basically signing up for a life of quiet, stable stagnation. You're trapped in the middle income bracket.
So that's option A. Slow, steady, and stuck. What's option B?
Option B is the 996 Inferno. You go work for a tech giant or a hot startup. You sign away your 20s, you destroy your health, you sacrifice your social life. It's brutal. But
There's a but.
there's a huge but.
Yeah.
You get stock options, you get a lottery ticket. If that company has a successful IPO, if you happen to be on the right team at the right time, you could become a millionaire overnight.
So it's a high-risk, high-reward gamble.
It's a gamble for generational wealth. There are these legendary stories, like the case of Wang Ming, a developer who did this grind, cashed out, and was able to buy his parents a house and secure his family's future. He escaped the gravity of the middle class. That's the dream they're selling.
So you're not just working for a salary, you're working for a chance to hit the jackpot.
Precisely. And the companies, they're masters at building an entire infrastructure to support this gamble.
You mean the corporate campuses?
The campuses are key. They offer free, gourmet quality meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They have on-site laundry services, gyms, even sleeping pods.
I've seen pictures of those sleeping pods. They're these futuristic capsules right under the desks.
They look cool, right? And the company sells it as a perk. Look how much we care about your well-being. We give you a place to nap.
But it's not really a perk, is it?
It's the opposite of a perk. It's a tool for maximizing output. It's all about removing friction. Every minute you spend commuting or cooking or doing laundry is a minute you aren't coding. So if the company can handle all of those life functions for you,
You never have a reason to leave the building.
they're designed to keep the human capital on-site and productive for as many hours as is biologically possible.
It's so efficient, it's terrifying. But biology always has the last word. You can't run a human being like a server at 100% capacity indefinitely. Eventually, the engine blows.
And we are seeing the smoke. We're seeing the system start to fray at the edges. And this brings us to the breaking point, to the resistance. And two words you absolutely have to understand to get what's happening in China's youth culture right now are Naihuan and Tangping.
Let's start with the Naihuan. The standard translation I've seen is involution.
Right. It's the opposite of evolution. Evolution is about developing outward, adapting, becoming more complex and successful. Involution is curling inward, burning energy without moving forward.
Like a hamster on a wheel that just keeps speeding up.
That's the perfect metaphor. A treadmill that gets faster and faster, but you're not actually going anywhere.
It reminds me of my friend at the cafe again, anxiously checking the clock, feeling the pressure to work, but not actually making progress on anything meaningful.
That's involution on a personal scale. On a societal scale, Niwan describes a system with diminishing returns. It's when you suddenly need a master's degree to get an entry-level job that only required a bachelor's 5 years ago.
But the salary for the job hasn't gone up.
Exactly. You're investing more and more effort, more time, more money on tuition just to stay in the same place. You're working harder and harder just to keep from falling behind.
And the productivity data we have on this is pretty clear, right? After a certain point, more hours don't equal more output.
Not at all. Most research shows that cognitive productivity falls off a cliff after about 50 hours a week. So those last 22 hours in a 996 schedule, a lot of that is just useless. It's garbage work.
So why do it?
It becomes performative. It's about face culture. You can't leave at 6 p.m. if your manager's still there. It would look like you're not dedicated. So you stay until 9 or 10, just sitting at your desk, involuting, burning electricity and your own life force, producing nothing of value.
Just to signal loyalty.
To signal that you're part of the collective sprint, even if you've already collapsed from exhaustion.
And the response to this, the backlash, is Tangping.
Tangping, lying flat.
It's such a beautifully passive-aggressive form of rebellion.
It's the ultimate act of quiet resistance. It's the youth looking at the speeding treadmill of Naiwan and the near impossible odds, the 996 lottery ticket, and simply saying, no.
I'm not playing.
I'm not playing this game anymore. It's not a violent protest. It's not a revolution in the streets. It's just stepping off the treadmill and lying down.
So what does that look like in practice?
It means doing the absolute bare minimum at your job. No overtime, no sprinting. It means rejecting the consumerist dream. I'm not going to kill myself to buy a house I can't afford. I'm not going to get married and have kids because the pressure is too high. It's a full-scale withdrawal from the social contract.
And the government must be horrified by this.
They are terrified. They've had state media publish articles condemning lying flat as shameful, lazy, and unpatriotic. But they're caught in a paradox.
How so?
Their entire economic model, the mayor economy, is built on the GDP growth that comes from that insane overwork. But the overwork is what's causing the youth to burn out and lie flat, which threatens social stability and future growth. They need the sprint, but the sprint is killing the runners.
There was a specific event that really acted as a catalyst for this movement, wasn't there? The death of an employee at Pinduoduo.
Yes, a tragedy that became a rallying cry. A 22-year-old employee, her online name was Zhang Fei, worked for the e-commerce giant Pinduoduo. She was walking home from their office in Urumqi at 1:30 in the morning, and she just collapsed on the street and died.
22 years old, that's such a kid.
It sent a shockwave through social media. It made the abstract dangers of 996 brutally concrete. This led to the creation of the 996.icu project on GitHub.
Right, the name itself is a protest.
The implication is clear. Work 996, and your next stop is the intensive care unit. It was this moment where the national narrative of temporal miracles and collective sprinting crashed head-on into the biological reality of a young person's heart stopping.
So it feels like we're at an inflection point. The software, the people are starting to reject the demands, the hardware. The machine is running too fast for its human operators.
It is. And this isn't just an internal Chinese debate anymore. This conflict is spilling out and is highlighting a global clash of civilizations, a fundamental disagreement on what time is even for.
And that takes us to our final story, which I have to say, of all the things we looked at, this one might have been the most jarring.
I agree. It's a stark one.
It's about a factory manager in Shenzhen, a major industrial hub. He was recently hosting a delegation of business people from Europe.
Okay.
And you can imagine the scene. The Europeans are making polite conversation, and they start talking about the latest trends in management back home. They're talking about work-life balance. They're talking about the benefits of remote flexibility, about the importance of mental health.
All the things we're currently obsessed with in the West.
Exactly. And the Shenzhen factory manager is listening to all this, and he's not nodding politely. The way it was described, he was looking at them with a mixture of confusion and pity.
Pity. That's a powerful reaction.
He genuinely felt sorry for them. Later, he gathered his own staff and told them about the meeting, and he said, "The West has lost its sense of the second."
Wow. Lost its sense of the second.
He saw all of our talk about flexibility not as an evolution of work, but as a sign of civilizational decadence, a weakening of the spirit, a softness that leads to industrial collapse.
So to him, our attempts to reclaim our time are a fatal flaw.
It's worse than a flaw. It's a moral failing. For him, the fact that 10,000 of his workers can start their machines at precisely 8:00 a.m. in perfect unison isn't a sign of oppression. It's a sign of collective will. It's a form of industrial asceticism. It's the ultimate mark of a civilization that still has the strength to lead.
That phrase, lost its sense of the second, that's going to stick with me. Because it reframes our entire modern conversation. It suggests that while we're busy optimizing our personal happiness, they're optimizing national power. And they see those two things as mutually exclusive.
And it's terrifying because if you're him and you look at the evidence, you look at the high-speed rail map of China versus the non-existent one in California, you feel like you have a pretty strong case. He feels his model is validated by reality. And this isn't just a hypothetical clash. This tension is playing out in other advanced economies too. Look at South Korea.
Right. This is a huge story recently.
South Korea is a wealthy, modern democracy. But the government, pushed by business groups, recently proposed raising the legal cap on the work week from 52 hours to 69 hours.
69 hours. That is basically an attempt to legalize the 9-to-9-6 lifestyle.
It is. The logic from the business lobbies was that the 52-hour cap was too rigid. They claimed they couldn't meet deadlines. They needed the flexibility, and notice how they use that word, the flexibility to work their people to the bone during crunch periods.
And the government's justification for this was, to put it mildly, completely twisted. The labor minister actually tried to argue it would be good for women and families.
That was the official line. The idea was that you could bank your overtime. So a woman could work 69 hours a week for a few months and then take a longer period of leave later on to be with her children.
Which is a complete fantasy that shows a total disconnect from reality, of course. Women's groups and unions immediately called it out. They said, in the real world, what will happen is men will work the 69 hours and be praised as dedicated providers, using it as an excuse to be even more absent from home. And women will be forced to either do both the insane hours and all the childcare, or be pushed out of the workforce entirely.
But the youth really pushed back on this, right? The MZ generation, as they call them.
Oh, the backlash was immediate and massive. The youth vote is powerful in South Korea, and they are the ones living with the consequences. They have their own word for this, kwarosa, death from overwork. They're the ones who can't afford homes in Seoul. They looked at a 69-hour work week and saw it not as an opportunity, but as a death sentence.
And the government had to back down.
They had to. The public anger was too great. It was a clear sign that the younger generation is no longer buying into the old social contract that more hours equals a better life.
It feels like there's this deep philosophical misunderstanding of what modern work even is. I was reading some Western commentary on this on places like Reddit, and someone called it the truck driver fallacy.
The truck driver fallacy. I like that. Explain it.
The idea is, if you're a truck driver, your output is linear. If you drive for 10 hours, you get twice as far as if you drive for 5 hours. More hours directly equals more output.
Sure. Makes sense.
But if you're a knowledge worker, a coder, a designer, an engineer, a strategist, That logic completely breaks down. Working for 16 hours doesn't produce twice as much good work as working for 8. It probably produces negative value.
How so?
Because after a certain point, you're not just tired. You're making bad decisions. You're writing buggy code that will take another engineer 3 days to find and fix. You're approving a bad design that will cost millions to recall later. Your exhaustion becomes a liability for the entire company.
That is the quintessential Western liberal knowledge economy argument. Efficiency isn't about time spent, it's about value created. Work smart, not hard.
Right, that's the mantra.
But the Eastern industrial aesthetic view, the view of that Shenzhen factory manager, is that the willingness to endure the long hours is itself a virtue. It's a demonstration of discipline, of commitment. It's not just about the output. It's about proving the collective has the stamina to suffer for a greater goal.
So we're left with these two completely irreconcilable worldviews. On one side, you have UA, time belongs to the collective national project, flexibility is a sign of weakness, synchronization is the ultimate strength, that's old Shen on the bridge, that's the Shenzhen manager.
And then you have view B, time belongs to the individual, flexibility is a fundamental human right. Forced synchronization is just a modern form of feudalism. That's the Western ideal, and it's increasingly the view of the lying flat generation in the East.
And the profoundly unsettling question is, which model is better suited to win the 21st century? Because the Shenzhen manager is looking at our falling productivity, our political divisions, and he's convinced we're in decline precisely because we value our weekends more than our national output.
And the counter-argument from our side would be that his model is simply unsustainable. It's burning its human fuel at an alarming rate. You can run a country at a sprint for a decade, maybe even 2. But can an entire civilization run a marathon at a sprint's pace?
History would suggest that eventually the machinery always breaks the operator.
Or the operators just get tired of running and decide to lie down.
As I've gone through all these accounts, I have to be honest, I'm left with this sense of profound unease. I mean, even as I can't help but admire the results, the trains really are that fast, the skyscrapers really are that tall, but looking at this hypersynchronized reality is like staring into a high-voltage engine.
It's impressive, but you don't want to get too close.
You don't want to touch it. From my liberal standpoint sitting here, it is so easy to decry the loss of the individual's free time, to lament the mechanical coldness of it all, but we have to be honest with ourselves. These stories show a culture that has successfully weaponized time to achieve what most of the world thought was impossible. We might call it a cage of temporal discipline, but for the people in these stories, for the architects of this system, that cage is the very vehicle carrying them toward a future of global dominance. It's a trade-off human flexibility for national power, and they seem to be making that trade with their eyes wide open.
It's a stark choice.
It is, and it forces you to re-examine your own relationship with the clock. That little device on your wrist or your screen isn't neutral. The anxiety it produces isn't just in your head, it's the product of a long history and a very specific ideology about what your time is for.
The clock isn't just a tool. It is the silent architect of our reality.